Can everyone hear me and see me? Hello, everyone. Let me know in the comments if you can see me and hear me, please. Gonna give it a minute for more people to join. And if you can let me know in the comments, where are you joining me from? Hello, Abdurrafa. Nice to see you once again. Thank you. Happy Ramadan. Please let me know if you can hear me and see me so that we can get started. Very good. Ammar, how are you, my friend? Good to hear from you. Excellent. Right, just one more, maybe half a minute or 30 seconds to let more people join us. I've moved this, so usually I'll hold my live on 7 p.m. UK time GMT every Thursday. I try to keep this time and date or day, but because it's Ramadan, so I've pushed it another half an hour, and let's see whether more people join this way or do people prefer it earlier. Please let me know if you have any thoughts around the lives and when do you think I should be going live, and what would be the best times in your opinion. Australia is 6 a.m. Wow. Well, good morning to you then. Right, so let's get started then. As I said, if you could just let me in the comments where you're joining me from. So thank you so much for joining me. My name is Mohammed Yunus. I work as a director of design and engineering for Aureus in the UK. Been in substations all my professional life, and held different roles or worked in different roles across design, engineering management, and um, technical project management and others. Today we're going to cover communications because, first of all, I usually hold a poll on my LinkedIn page, and people vote what they choose for as a subject of every live. And in which case, this one, people, or the most people, voted for communications, which is very essential for leadership, which is very essential for success, for career growth, for lots and lots of things in our work. In my opinion, communications is everything, because you think of ideas, and if you're unable to communicate them across effectively and in a manner that drives successful results, then you're actually reducing your efficiency in whichever capacity you're in, whether it's in your job, when working with others, when requesting information from others, whether you're discussing a raise or asking for a promotion, or whether you're communicating with clients to build that reputation of yours and your personal brand. All these are necessary steps in your career, and sooner or later you're going to have to take some of these steps if you haven't taken them already on multiple occasions. So communication is key, and it is how we achieve, in my opinion, everything. Um, if you don't learn how to communicate better, then you're not able to get any ideas across in the best manners, in the best manner, and frankly, you would be giving up huge potential to get things done for you. And improving your communication styles and approaches can be one of the best things and improvements you could drive to have a huge impact on your career and on your life as well. Being an engineer today, you've got a lot of opportunities, massive and huge opportunities and potential. So think of communications as the vehicle that carries your ideas and aspirations. And if it is a fast, reliable, and safe vehicle, then your ideas will arrive in the best way possible. Now, I want this session to be more interactive. So please feel free to, and I urge you to please give me questions in the comments and tell me if you've heard something that you liked or resonated with. If you heard something that you have a different outtake on or different opinion, just please leave it in the comments. Let's interact with each other and learn from each other. And you know what? If you're an engineer who wants to travel and work in a different country, and a lot of I think a few of the people in the comments already said they are working in other countries. And if you're an engineer who wants to work in a different country, then having a strong and effective communication skill set is a must. It's the first step and the first thing that will help you achieve that career goal of moving countries or working abroad or experiencing a different culture, experiencing a different place or a different industry. So without clear communications that is related or that is relevant to the local culture and practice, the chances of you landing a job in another place are frankly slim. So if you're a very strong communicator, that will come across in interviews, that will come across when you are presenting yourself, whether it's in your CV or a cover letter or talking to the recruiter. And we tend to maybe not be aware of this, but actually in all these interactions with the recruiters, with the hiring managers, over the phone, over Teams, in person, they all leave impressions, and these little impressions, they accumulate and form the overall impression, and that overall impression at the end drives the result, whether it's your way or whether it's someone else's way or in the way of someone else. So the first thing I like to think about effective communication, or the first thing I want to think about, or I think I like to think about in effective communication, is that it is never one way. So instead, think of it as a closed loop. So it's not just me talking to you or you talking to someone. It's actually both the sender and the receiver exchanging information and messages. So maybe that sender or receiver is you, and that's the other party is your line manager or your colleague or somebody in another department that works with you. So yeah, I can see a lot of good comments. That's excellent. Keep them coming, please, and we will discuss them and get to them midway through our live today. Excuse me. Again, as I say always, I always say that I don't want to overdo this live thing and extend for a longer time, but we'll see. So my aim for today is half an hour. As I said, it's Ramadan. It's been a long day. Half an hour should be all right. So don't think of communications as a one-way street. Instead, think of it as a closed loop where the receiver and the sender exchange messages on a regular basis until the successful outcome is achieved. And one of the very common mistakes of many people, fall into or do in engineering and engineering management is they are in to just communicate their message across, and that's it. But you need to give the time for the other party, the opposing party, or the person in front of you at the receiving end to process the information, acknowledge, that they understood in their own way, and also allow people to ask questions to clarify. So if you ignore the people's need to ask back questions to clarify the aims behind your message and behind your communication, then trust me, your communication is not going to be effective, and you got to bear in mind that you're communicating to achieve results. So you should be doing your best to ensure your message has been received. And that includes acknowledging the opposite number to you, understanding your message, and um, allowing them to also clarify and ask questions to confirm their understanding, and to also um, in a way, in a very polite and nice way, and perhaps in a subtle way, try to get them to confirm that they have understood the message. And it goes the other way around. So when someone is speaking to you or is communicating with you, you'd need to also confirm and acknowledge to them that you are understanding what they're trying to say or what they're trying to communicate. And this is where collaboration will happen, and you will achieve good results together. So this goes the other way as well. Listening properly is such an underrated skill or trait these days, because of the ever shrinking attention span. So we have to, in today's age, we also have to train, and we need to train ourselves to listen more actively and keep ourselves um, attentive, and keep ourselves more attentive and in the moment and engaged. We need to acknowledge the message that is sent to us or communicated to us. And I really personally like to repeat the original message back in my own way to make sure that I understood it, and to make sure that the person who's communicating to me knows that, or gets a more clear idea or a more thorough idea about my level of understanding of what they communicated to me. Um, this is just not to not risk being off on a tangent or away from the aim without knowing. Okay, so communication is a two-way street. Remember that. Do you have any questions so far? Leave them in the comments if so, and I'll get to them. And we can communicate in many, or for many, conscious and subconscious reasons. But in order to simplify things and to think of communication and trying to understand what is effective communication, we need to simplify why do we communicate, and think maybe closely and examine what is it about communication. So let us consider two main aims. We communicate either to inform, or to influence, or persuade, or convince. So it's either someone trying to tell me something, or keeping me in the loop, or informing me of something that is happening either to them or in the business, or on the common task we have, or on the project that we're working on, etc. Or it's to persuade me, to get me to do something to help them achieve something. Or if it's a team leader or my managers telling me, they want me to look at something, or they want me to do something in a particular manner. So that's persuasion, or convincing me to actually take that action. So it could be just to let someone know of something that you feel or think they should know for a certain reason or outcome. That's informing. Or it could be to get somebody to do something for you, such as help you with something, or get you to or get you a certain input, let's say, to enable you to carry on with your work, or to start your work, or to complete your work, or to do something in particular, etc. So these would be the main two aims, and this is why you need to think of that aim to be able to learn how to tailor your message to achieve those aims. So in order for our message to achieve its aims, it needs to be effective through being tailored to match that need, aim, or requirement in the first place. Okay. Somebody's saying about emojis and hand gestures in emails. And look, I mean, we are, if you've put an emoji in an email 10 years ago, you probably get a letter from HR or something like that. But nowadays, you could like or react to emails, because that's just the culture, and that's where we are as a working culture. Remember, Gen Z are getting into the culture. The younger people are coming into the business, and it's becoming more and more the norm to use emojis. Fine, and even memes and all sorts. But you got to understand that emojis are also, um, or when you use something like that, you got to be aware of the cultural references. So you'd be surprised, but you can. I won't talk about this, but you can Google it and find out. There are certain emojis that could mean offensive things in different cultures, and this is where it becomes a bit tricky. But again, like if you're in a place in a time, you need to be aware of that, local place and time and the context of the place and time that you're in and communicating in. So don't worry too much about a lot of these things, but yeah, this is the time we're in. um, and your message will be different every time, depending not only on the aim but also on the receiver and the environment, as I said, you're in, the context and the mode of communication, and how you actually communicate. So first of all, you need to understand and focus about who is it that you're trying to communicate with. So you need to understand a lot about the person in front of you or the group in front of you with which you're trying to communicate, and be aware of their unique perspective on things. If I'm talking about um, a certain thing at work, I need to be aware what the receiving person or the other person, my colleague or my manager or my teammate or team member. So they all, I need to be aware, how do they perceive that message coming from me, and how do they perceive the subject of that message. So are there any preconceived notions or thoughts or ideas or impressions about this, in order for me to tailor this. So I'll give you an example. If someone, for instance, is easily put under pressure, then I wouldn't approach the message asking them to do something by a certain deadline, to begin with. But there are other engineers or other, let's say, teammates that I feel, look, we've worked for many years together. So I could go to them directly and just tell them, what do you think? Can this be done by this date? And they would respond always positively, or push back in a healthy manner. That's not a problem at all. So this is where the tailoring of the message is important, and it depends on the receiving end. So the first common mistake that I find a lot of engineers do is that you talk a lot of details to people who aren't interested in. So I could be, explaining something to, again, a teammate in a level of detail that I wouldn't go into with my manager, because, the manager wouldn't be interested in that sort of detail. They'll be interested in the outcome. They'll be interested in a commitment. They'll be interested in different things. So this could go on, and that person will take the wrong impression. If you're going into a lot of detail with the wrong level or with the wrong person, then this could give the wrong impression that you're confused or you aren't aware of priorities, the real priorities, in there. As I said, it's a perception, so it's a different perception. When you're in a management position, when you're in a executive position, you see priorities differently. That's normal. So, or you tend to want to be focusing on the outcomes, and ask the team to have the ownership and take ownership of the work. You wouldn't be interested in the details. So if you were talking to such levels of management, you wouldn't want to go into the detail. Otherwise, as I said, you give the impression that you might be confused, or even worse, you don't have control over your work. So this is where, when communicating with executive or management, etc., you want to be brief, and you want to be to the point, and you want to be focused, concise, and always appear in control. And I would start very, very, pragmatically and just to the point, saying that this is the outcome. I always think, what do I want them to remember out of this conversation? Because it's usually 2 or 3 words. So if they ask me on a certain project, if I have the update, I'll give the update in a very brief, high level, and I would say useful way. Yeah. I wouldn't usually take them through the detail into what's happening or what I know about what's happening in the project. That's not the time, or they're not, that's not the thing they will be interested in. And the second mistake is, I see a lot of the time that people don't take time to go through some necessary details. So that's the other end of the spectrum. So when you're talking to a team member or a teammate, you might actually send them in the wrong way. So you need to take the time and put the necessary effort into explaining the aims behind the plan, behind the message, behind what you're trying to say. And that, you know, if you don't get into that necessary detail for them, they might feel being bossed around, for instance. So this is where the rationale behind the request, the rationale behind the message needs to be explained, and you need to take time, and you need to also tailor, choose, of course, the right time, the right place, the right mode of communication, and be aware of all these things. So always think about what your message will make people feel. This is very important, because if you tailor your message to be aware, or being aware of people's emotions and how they would react, um, that would again get you more and better, more successful and better results. So would that person take it emotionally? In which case you'd need to pick your timing and explain more, again, taking the time to go through enough details and answering any questions, any clarifications they might have, making sure they feel comfortable after understanding your message. I always ask people, "Are you okay? Are you enjoying it? Is that clear?" etc. So these kind of reassuring questions will drive better results with the team. And think about also what they need to understand and what their level of understanding may be, and tailor your message. We have people in the team, for instance, who are self-driven, you know, very competent. They know their stuff. They know what they're talking about. So with them, communication is easy. You get to the point, they know where to take it from there. Done. And that's the best way. But not everybody is alike, and you have to understand that. And you have to also tailor your message to different styles and approaches of people. So that's just how it is. Otherwise, you know, if you tend to be able to work only with one kind of communicators, you're not going to go far. So the people who succeed are the people who can tailor their message and work with different people, different kinds of communicators, different, emotional profiles, different competencies and levels of understanding and levels of operation. So these are the people who can succeed and will succeed, no doubt about it. So think about what you want to do together and clarify the action in your message. An action, as I said, an action orientated person would be happy with a short, actionable message, while someone who is more of a detailed planning approach will want to know more from you on each step by step, and go into more details on the preparation, say the limits, the outcomes, with the relevant examples. But let's pause for a minute, because I can, or probably would hear some say, even if they just say it to themselves and not out loud, but some would say, why all this hard work? Well, why do you need to go through all this trouble to communicate with different people? That sounds like a hard or long. It's not really, and it's very, very rewarding. And if you spend more time and effort trying to understand the different people, and when you can tailor your message differently, to different levels of communication and different approaches and styles, then you get more done and you experience more success. And nothing else is like this for your career prospects. It's like magic. As I said, people who easily work with many others go far in their careers. I have seen it many, many times. So always try to approach that with an open mindset and a growth mindset, I would say. Um, to help you with that, to help you tailor your message, always ask yourself these questions to prepare for your communication, to prepare your messages. The first one is, what's the person's knowledge level of the subject? And that would drive, to an extent, the amount of information and the amount of detail that you need to include or exclude from your message. And your second question is, what is their preconceived impressions that they might have of the subject? And again, sometimes you got to tread carefully around, you know, um, initial impressions or preconceived notions, and provide evidence for what you say. If you're gonna put something out there to somebody who might react differently to what you'd want them to react. So you need to always think about the reaction, or how to make sure that the person doesn't misunderstand what you're saying. And the third one, and I think it's a very important point, because it does provide a lot of context to the messaging and to the communication, is what history and what level of trust do you have with the person that you're communicating with. So if you're communicating with a teammate or a team member, or a colleague that you've worked with for a long time and you've achieved a lot of things together, that's a more smooth and relaxed, let's say, communication that you don't need to overthink or think much about. Rather than dealing with a new person in the team, you gotta be a little bit maybe reserved, maybe take your time more with explaining and introducing for your message, etc., etc. And the fourth question I would ask is, what kind of emotions that person might have listening to or receiving my message. And that's very important, because emotions will drive the reaction from people in general. That's how we all operate. We hear something, and emotion is the first thing that kicks in. So it's important to understand that about messaging and communication. So always anticipate that people, or let's say, how would you craft your message in order to get the right reaction from the person in front of you, which is a positive reaction. So you don't want to, annoy or stress out anyone. And the fifth question is, how do you adopt your approach to get their buy-in? There are different kinds of approaches for dealing, again, with different people. The thing that I could get on board with and get my buy-in on is different to someone else's. So if you're an engineering manager, or if you're a lead engineer or a chief engineer or somebody in an engineering leadership role, you need to always be aware of these different approaches and different keys to different styles of personalities. And what you also need to learn is that your message is not only your words, it's also the tone, your body language, or what people might call non-verbal aspects of your communication. So again, this is very cultural. It's very, it's got a local context. There are a lot of things at play here, but this is only honed and gained with more and more interaction and engagement and communication with people. So always try to engage more and more with your teammates, with the people you work with the people in your organization or around you, and even outside of your organization. Try to network with people in different other companies, different industries, learn more from others, and approach communication with more listening and a more open and growth mindset, because that will take you far in your career, or further in your career. Okay, let's pause and take some questions. Let's see. What's that? 6 a.m. in Australia. Great. What do we have? We've got Yusuf says 100% many people I knew felt a bit underqualified for a job, but their communication skills made it up with the interviewer. Yes, 100% Yusuf. Because I agree, because communication is what actually amplifies your message, it amplifies your competence, it amplifies your experience. That's good communication. Poor communication will actually take away from all that. So remember, if you don't learn how to articulate your experiences clearly and in the best manner and efficiently, then your CV will not be a strong CV. And we talked about this in the last live and in a couple of articles that I wrote and published. So again, communication is key, whether it's written, whether it's spoken, verbal. So a lot of this is down to how you communicate and how you come across as a candidate. 100%. Yusuf again saying, as an engineer, one of my best courses I benefited from was English business writing class. Yeah. So, yeah, me too. In university, I remember maybe 20 or more years ago now. But these are the kind of courses that I enjoyed as well. And it's a pity that I haven't been practicing writing articles for many years. No, I did that, sporadically, and over the years, I did it when I was doing my master's degree in a few papers that I published. But then afterwards, I stopped, and I did write, but not in the way that I write today. So this is one thing I probably should have done more of. I should have kept writing about the stuff that interests me, because again, communicating in that way is just is very, very important for you as an engineer and as a manager and as somebody who wants to grow their career. Do you have any courses on recommendations on emails, report, article writings? So that's a good question, and I'll dig out some good courses for you. There's lots of good stuff on LinkedIn Learning. There's lots of stuff as well online, and um, in a few websites. So I'll take that question away, Yusuf, and I'll get back to you with good recommendations. See what I did there with communication? If you get a question that you might not be very well prepared for, you could always say, "Yeah, leave that with me. I'll get back to you on that one." So give yourself time to respond to questions. Keen to hear about mistakes that cost much and set someone back in their career progress. Yeah. So I've seen it a lot, actually, where people take things personally, where people might communicate in an emotional way, and that cost them. Cost them. I wouldn't say a lot, but it did cost them. People who are good communicators will always be remembered as good communicators, and they will kind of like have that impression and keep that impression. And people who are bad communicators will be probably the people that, let's say, others are going to avoid putting into communicating situations. Yeah, that should make sense, I think. But and that is career limiting. Of course it is, because what you're trying to do with your career is expand and explore more and more of these opportunities. And the more or the better communicator you are, the more opportunities you'll have. The less. So it's all about that, really. Hand gestures, real life emojis. We talked about that. Yeah. Checking in with the individual if the message is properly. So this is a very long message from Abdurrafa. Asking questions definitely provides clarity. Yes. Yes. So always ask questions, I would say. And, you could agree with somebody when they're talking to you. You could say, yeah, I see. Yeah, you got a point there. Yeah, I totally understand. I could relate to that, etc. So statements like that would actually keep the communication flowing. Being polite and even if communicating a sensitive matter, using the right phrase. Yeah, that's good. Eye contact. Yes. So you need to keep eye contact, but at the same time, there are some times that you'd need to break eye contact, look somewhere else, especially when if you're getting emotional. So let's say my manager is coming to me and he's giving me like some good old criticism. Okay. So if, for example, there is criticism about something, or whether we were delayed on something, or I said something that he thought, oh, you shouldn't have said that, something like that. It happens. I might, as a person, we're all humans, so we've got emotions. I might, be a little bit defensive. So maybe that's time to break eye contact and just breathe a little bit and then respond. Don't rush into response. Don't rush into, escalating situations. Do not do that, because while I understand, and I used to be very, very emotional. I'm still am emotional. I think I care about what I do, so that makes anybody emotional. So you know you don't need to jump into disagreements, or escalating situations, or confrontational situations. You don't need that. Do not do that. And the more you learn how to manage that when you're communicating, the further you'll go as well, because that just doesn't help anybody. Emotions are there, of course, yeah, and we need to acknowledge them and we need to deal with them. But do not let emotions overtake and overdrive whatever situation. Be always in control. Try to be always in control of your communications, of your situation that you're in, and do not take things too far. Under any circumstance, that's not helpful for anyone, especially you. Um, when any received information over email, is it better to acknowledge it with a reply, or wait until the right time after processing and then replying with the final processed data, while trying to keep the email unread, hide until processing is finalized? Okay, it's a long message, Navid, but I'll try to. Could you split the message for me, please, and just explain every part, or separate them, because I feel there's a lot of statements together. So, if you receive an email, is it better to acknowledge it with a reply, or wait until the right time after processing? It depends. If it's a short, quick reply or something that reassures somebody, sure. Or, you could acknowledge the email and say, I've received it. I don't prefer that, to be fair, because I just don't like this email madness, ping pong of emails going everywhere. There's a lot of emails that I think shouldn't be sent, and I would rather have everything in just one email. So that email replying to all, I'm not a big fan of that. But sometimes you need to do that. So is it better to acknowledge it with a reply? I don't think so. I think you should wait till the right time after processing, after having something of substance, and reply. If that is within the time frames expected. If you're going to take longer than the time frame expected, or is it going to be, or if it is going to be delayed, then you'd rather, or you have to have a word with the person and tell them, look, I'm not going to be able to reply or respond within the expected time frames, so please bear with me. While trying to keep the email unread, highlighted until processing is finalized. Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, so you can keep the email unread, so that I understand where you're coming from. So I assume you mean so that it is in the unread, it's highlighted as unread, so it's like an action list for you. That's fine if you like that. I personally don't like action lists as emails. Um, I prefer to have a separate action list because not every email is um, is to be answered and replied to. There's a lot of emails that just don't have the right information in them. Okay, and sometimes I feel acknowledgement replies make the emails disappear in the big inbox. Yes, of course. So you gotta, and this is a trap we fall in. Emails they pile up and we lose the important stuff. So always try to find the mechanism. And there is a lot of tools out there. You could use Outlook. You could, write down. I don't know, but always be conscious of your to-do list. Don't end up in an action hoarder, so someone who takes action after action after action in terms of documenting them, but they never get the time to actually take the actual action. So yeah, be aware of your action list and keep it somewhere, keep it only in one location, and follow up on your actions. That's for sure. How to keep better tracking. And one thing to help here is prioritization of emails. So if you've got a way to prioritize your emails, that is a lifesaver, my friends. How to keep better tracking of future actions while keeping them. I will write about note taking and action tracking because it's such an important topic. So bear with me. I will get you an answer in the next few weeks. Ammar is saying, how important is the first impression and game changer, or is it overestimated? Ooh, that's very important. First impressions are massive. So, first impressions are everything and they're nothing. So, they're everything because if you get the right first impression, you're just catapulted, to the front of the queue, if that makes sense. But if you don't leave the first good impression, and there is a difference between not leaving a first good impression and leaving a bad first impression. Okay. So if you don't leave the first good impression, then there's still time. There's still hope to catch up and do something about it. But if you leave a bad first impression, that could be damaging. So there are three different first impressions. Yeah. A good first impression, brilliant. It will take you further. A not first impression, so it's not good, it's not bad, but you haven't left a good first impression, but you haven't left a bad one either. Then you might have time to catch up or rectify. But if you leave a bad first impression, that could be damaging, unfortunately, and that depends on different people. So I'm not a person who usually sticks to first impressions. I change my mind. So it depends on the person in front of you. Dane, hello, my friend. Good to see you on LinkedIn. So Dane is a colleague of mine. We work together in Aureus. He's a very, very good operations manager and project manager. Couldn't agree more, Mo. Thank you, my friend. Communication in an interview is paramount. Following the interview, if not successful, requesting feedback, working to improve is also good. If interviewed the same candidate again after years, and I have interviewed the same candidate again after a few years, and they've been appointed. Yes, yes. Unfortunately, it doesn't show on the screen fully, but this is a very important thing for everybody who's watching and following on this. So, if you are unsuccessful on an occasion, a certain single occasion, do not lose hope because there are chances that you can be successful in the future, as Dane said. So he's interviewed someone, and that somebody was not successful in the first instance, wasn't hired, I assume, and then they requested feedback. They worked on that feedback. They applied again in a following opportunity, and they got the opportunity. So look, that's why I always tell people: do not despair. Please do not give up on yourselves, and certainly on opportunities, because there's plenty of opportunities. And as I always said, opportunities will come with experience. The more experience you have, the more, that potential for opportunities will build up. Okay, so we are 45 minutes in, so I'll try to now rush through the rest. But keep the questions coming. Brilliant. They're all brilliant. Thank you very much. So one of the biggest problems in business today with communication is um, choosing the wrong mode of communication. So let's say, for example, you want something from a colleague of yours, let's say a piece of information, or want them to take a certain action to unblock something that will feed into your work, whether it's like a piece of information or something that completes or a prerequisite to a certain element of your work. So thinking that a direct, dry written email message over Teams or over email will be enough can be very, very wrong and very, very damaging. So instead, always rethink of the mode of communication. In this case, whether it could be better to spend 5 to 10 minutes face to face, over a cup of tea or coffee or whatever, or if you're remote working, then over a video call or even a phone call. So taking the time to check, just pause for a second, breathe, and think about what you're going to send in an email. Does it really need to be in an email? Would it be better off? Would you be better off speaking to the person face to face or in person? So check on them first. Their workload. That dissolves any differences or dissolves any obstacles that might be already there before you asking for that favor or action from them. So people who fail to do that experience regular breakdown in communications, and their work results will suffer. No doubt about it. And in many cases, they might be oblivious to the situation and they think, why is this happening to them? Well, it's the way they communicate and how their actions reflect on their results. So always choose your mode of communication carefully. This can be a huge booster for how you collaborate with others to achieve more success. Okay. And another important aspect, and we touched upon that in the 5 questions that you ask yourself before you tailor or to help you tailor your message. So you need to ask your relationship with that person. What is it like? The person you're trying to communicate with, whether there is trust already, whether there is a whether there is a rapport, and did you achieve things together before? How long have you been working together? How do you know each other? How well do you know each other? And these are all factors that could affect or can affect how you communicate. If you're going to be communicating with somebody you've known for a long time and they know you as well, then your message might be less reserved in a way, in contrary to if it's somebody new or you're working together for the first time. Then you got to bear that in mind and allow for some, for some calmness and less direct persuasion in your messaging, I would say. Okay, always focus on. That's another thing that's very, very important, especially when you're communicating with management or people who could influence things for you. Always focus on the important points. So start with what you're especially interested in saying, or you're sending an email. Then start with if you're sending them an email, start with the most important point of action that you're calling for, or information or update that you're giving. So the most memorable thing that you want people to take away from your message, especially when you're sending emails or when you're briefing executives or managers. This is because usually they are, people in those positions and people who are accepting emails from you are usually under some kind of like time constraint. Okay, when it comes to time, they want to get to the point really quickly. So the further your point is, the more annoying the message becomes and the less effective it becomes. So remember to start with the most important statements, whether it's the end result or the action or the thing that you're trying to or you want them to take away for, or to take for you, or what you want them to take away and remember from your message. Okay. Another kind of situation is when you're in tough situations, try to not rush to responding. So if you feel somebody put you on the spot, or you're surprised, or maybe there's a bit of criticism, or something that puts you off, well, try to buy some time and responding with a calm statement, such as as I said, let me check for you, let me get back to you, I'll leave that with me, I need to look further into it before you give you an answer. Or you could ask further clarifying questions, uh, or request examples, so I need some time to answer this if you wouldn't mind, things like that. So yeah, that would help. And it's important to know that you will feel emotions. Of course, we're all human. We will all feel emotions when we're confronted or criticized. However, that's normal. But however, give yourself time to analyze the information and respond in a positive and constructive way. You do not you never want to escalate the situation at work, and never want to amplify a disagreement, because the less escalations you deal with and the better you are managing disagreements the more, the better you will progress in your career. Another effective way of dealing with difficult messages that you receive would be to ask for clarification, but not vaguely. You need to ask for clear and specific and relevant examples that would help you understand more about what that person is actually meaning or after. I'll give you an example from my personal experience in the past as an engineer. Of if you, for example, I was requested to carry on more work instead, and you know that you haven't got the current capacity to deal with that additional workload. Instead of entering into a confrontational situation, take that away and have a look at your workload plan or your list of deliverables that you are working on for the time being, or for the instance. And this is where you'll take the discussion from a verbal exchange to an actual document or tool that is factual, and you will find that people will relate more to that. They will understand that result more, and you will get to a conclusion, or a better conclusion, with something like that. Your communication can get smarter and smarter, always, by having backing up information or a clear rationale behind your messaging. That makes people tend to agree easier with you, and will also allow them to follow your thought process in a seamless manner. So this is managing evidence for communication, and this is where communication can be subjective, but if backed by tangible information and facts, then it becomes objective, and more people will tend to agree on that. Okay. Finally, it's important to keep in mind that you're not going to be able to learn something like communications, really quickly and apply it unless it comes naturally. And, that is rare. But for the majority of us, we take our time. We need longer time to learn elements, and bit by bit to apply it. And it takes some effort. So you need to maybe learn or sign up for one of these trainings on communication, or training courses. And a lot of them are online. A lot of them cover the same elements and the same principles. They're all the same. Speak to a mentor again. Observe somebody in the workplace who you look up to, or somebody who tends to be, or seems to be, a natural or easier communicator, let's say. So learn from these people, observe what they do, and find out what they do and how they do it differently, and even have a chat with them to get some advice and get some insights on how to communicate in your organization. So all these approaches are similar to an extent, but once you start learning, my advice to you is to focus and learn and apply one bit at a time. So don't get overwhelmed and try to gather a lot of these advices and information together and apply them all at once. That's not going to work. This needs time, and it needs like a long term route. So this is a long term development thing. It doesn't come overnight. Okay. And I think that's it. We are, I think, on time. Are there any questions before I go? Thank you very much for watching, and thank you so much for engaging and commenting. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed it. I do enjoy talking with you, and I hope that you are finding this useful and informative. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Otherwise, I'll call it a day. And just to give the system a minute, last bit is golden. Thank you very much, sir. Which bit? Thank you, Ammar. Appreciated, my friend. Thank you for your encouraging words. I really do appreciate it. Um, so before we go, if you have any questions, write them in the comments, please. And you will always find me, as always, on Substack. So this is where I write and get a lot more into detail in terms of the insights, in terms of the career advice, in terms of a lot of the information that I write about. So these are all on Substack, and this is where on Substack I think you can leave me a comment and I'll get notified when you leave me a comment, unlike LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is very, very interesting. So last week I think I've got 80,000 people, who read and engaged and viewed my content. This is very helpful and entertaining. Thank you so much. Yeah, as long as it's entertaining, that's good. And yeah, so back to LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn, is an interesting place. So I write about something and people come in and comment their points of views, which is great. We respect everybody's point of view, but people are looking at things from their own lens and angle, and everybody's got a unique perspective. So if someone is coming in and commenting on a post that I wrote targeting electrical engineers in the energy construction industry, particularly in the UK, and if they are coming over from a different country, a different industry, a different profession, a different background, a different, professional background, of course, a different, like, I don't know, all sorts of different circumstances and situations, then I'm sorry, but your comment doesn't apply. And I tend to either ignore negative comments or comments that are not useful, or address them in a positive, constructive way, or actually just delete them. So and this is only when I come across the comment. So the other day, one of my friends told me that on one of the posts, there were some comments talking about salaries and all that. And I went in and read them. And I ended up deleting a couple of them because I think they were really negative. Some of the outlooks on salaries and all that, they are very subjective. And, I wrote about negative notions and, how people shouldn't follow the negative, let's say, opinions. Okay. Because I'll tell you, it's simply not true. Some of these opinions I disagree with. They're not true. As a fact, that's not true. But I understand that, in work and in business and in careers, everything is subjective. So it's down to a person's opinion and perspective. But anyway, thank you very much, all. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment on Substack or on LinkedIn, or DM me with your questions. And as always, enjoy and have a good evening. And thank you for your time. And all the best.